Zoe. I am your host, Zoe D, author of that song, Most High, and author of the title series, hashtag A Call to Purity, as well as Confession for Wives and War Wounds, which are both prayer books. You're tuned in again to Life with Zoe, and welcome to our first episode where we're going to be talking about, as the title suggested, the power of sex. So I'm going to jump right in it because, once again, we're not going to have long, drawn out podcasts at the moment. Just want to hit it and quit it if I can use that expression nicely. So let me ask you a question. I want you to think about this. If you were to take sex off the table, assuming that you are sexually active, and even if you're not sexually active, this is also a good question. If you were to take sex off the table, or not include or even put sex on the table, would you still be in love? I want you to think about that because, in actuality, what we're going to discuss today are two key principles. We're going to talk about this from the biblical perspective, and then we're going to talk about this from the biological perspective. So, a little bit about me. I went to school for biology. I have always loved to understand how the body works. I have always loved to understand what causes what. I believe in the cause and effect type thing. So I believe that for every action, there's an opposite or equal reaction. That's science, that's laws, that's the laws of physics. And so we're going to talk about today sex from a biological point of view and sex from a spiritual point of view, and show you how biology basically affirms what the spirit says that sex is. So we're going to jump off with the biological aspect of it. So, did you know? This is another question. I was a teacher also, where I am a teacher. When you're a teacher, you teach. So, I still am a teacher, but I'm teaching in a different realm. So, I want to ask you the question: did you know that there are certain chemicals that are actually released in your body when you have sex? When you're attracted to somebody, you have chemicals that for layman's terms, turns you on. It gets the juices flowing in in that sense. If you understand that language, your body, when you're attracted to someone and when you're ready to have sex, your body responds to that by lubricating. If you're a female, your vagina gets lubricated. Your breasts get a little tingly, and just a couple of things. You feel turned on. The same aspect with men. Men get turned on, they get an erection. The hormones, those are hormones that cause those reactions. Your testosterone and your estrogen, that's what causes that lust, that attractive, when you're turned on by someone. And then you have the attraction, the attraction, if you think in the terms of a magnetic pull. Those are operated also by hormones. You have dopamine and serotonin, and another word that I actually can't pronounce, but it's it's a hormone. But dopamine, if you think about certain drugs, even not even certain drugs, certain Facebook, social media likes, different things like that. There have been studies. Food makes you feel a certain type of way, and these things, these hormones, are really what drives addictions. So if you like food or you crave certain things like sugar, white sugar is as addictive, or more addictive than crack cocaine, but it's because it raises those dopamine levels. You know what I'm saying? It's because it raises that hormone that tells you, I like this and I've got to have more on it of it. I've got to have more, whether that's sex, whether that's drugs, whether that's the likes on Facebook or the loves on Instagram. You just gotta have more of it. And then finally, you have two hormones called, one is called oxytocin, the other is called vasopressin, or however that's pronounced. And these hormones are actually released when you have sex with someone. And all of these make up really the components of sex from beginning to end, because you have to lust, you have to be attracted to someone, and then finally, when you have sex with that person, those hormones are released that tells you basically, this is mine. I'm attached to you. We hear it through all these songs, with the lyrics, I can't live without you. I'm dangerously in love with you, and all these type of things that, these words that we speak based on the emotions that we're feeling. But really, if you took sex off the table, if there was never, a combining or an attachment in the physical, would it still be the same? And hence, this is the foundation of the power of sex, because we got to understand that you by nature are physically, biologically, physiologically designed to have attractions towards people. But once you cross that threshold and you actually give your body, you actually, your vaginal fluids and seminal fluids actually come in contact, the Bible states that you have now become one. The Bible states that you have become one flesh with that person that you have just slept with. And so we got to go, that's the biological part of it. So let's go to the spiritual part of it, because sex was meant to be for marriage. Sex was meant to be what consummated, or basically bridged your covenant, or I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but sex was meant to solidify or consummate your marriage. And the reason being, because you're supposed to be a virgin, and blood, when blood is shed, that is what secures a covenant, or that particular covenant. So you ever heard of, like, the term blood buddies, or you prick your finger and the other person pricks their finger, and you become God's sisters, or blood brothers, or blood sisters, because you exchanged that blood. You became one. Well, in sex, the shedding of blood was supposed to consummate or solidify that covenant between a husband and a wife. Sex is a spiritual factor with obviously biological backup, because we're looking at chemicals telling you that you're attracted to this person, that you need this person, that you are one with this person. And let's be honest, if we didn't feel attachments, if we didn't feel like we were one with people that we had sex with, we wouldn't clown over them the way that we do, or we wouldn't hurt for them the way that we do. So it's very important to realize that science solidifies what God says. And this is important when we're talking about celibacy, because understand that you are a soul. You're a spirit that has a soul. Your soul is comprised of your mind, your will, your emotions. When you become one through sex with that person, you become one in soul. Your souls are tied to one another. So you got to look at it like this. Imagine if everybody that you had sex with, you became physically conjoined with. Because that's what science tells you, and that's what the Bible tells you. You are now one flesh. It says that they are no longer two, but they are one flesh. You can find that in Genesis 2:24. Another scripture is Matthew 19:5, Mark 10:8, Ephesians 5:31. You can find so many scriptures that solidify that when you have sex with a person, you are not just one entity anymore. Your souls. That's how come you can think about them and they call, or you can sense, your body can actually sense their smell. You can sense their smell and get turned on. Your body produces such phenomenal results when you have sex with a person that attaches you to that person. And that's why sex in marriage is important, but we're not talking about that right now because that's a whole nother episode. But that's divine intimacy. Sex is meant to be divine. Sex is meant to be between husband and wife. And when you cross that threshold and you're just having sex with anybody, you are chemically and spiritually connecting yourself as one with that person. And so it could be a very beautiful thing in the context of sex spiritually, in the context of marriage, but it can be a very dangerous thing. Because once again, if your dopamine's level are enhanced with this person, and this person moves on and gets to lusting and loving someone else, you're gonna feel some type of way about that. And 9 times out of 10, you're gonna either replace that with another addiction that dopamine fulfills, fulfills that dopamine. I'm sorry, or either you're gonna fall into depression, or you're gonna fall into other destructive habits, or you're gonna replace that sexual body with somebody else. And so I think that one of the biggest things that we're seeing in our culture is this casual sex. Has tricked us into believing that we can just live and have sex loosely with anybody and there be no strings attached. People, that is spiritually impossible by the scriptures, and that is biologically impossible. There is no such thing as casual sex. There is no such thing as no strings attached. According to the oxytocin that your body will release, and the vasopressin that your body will release, and the dopamine levels that your body will release, there is no such thing as casual sex. So let's not be fooled. Let's really answer the call to purity in this generation, because God's calling us to a higher lifestyle. So that being said, I'm going to end right there. This is actually going to be a 4-part series where we're going to talk more about the power of soul ties in next week's session, and just the power of a couple of things when it comes to sex, obviously. So I'm going to end right there. Until next time, it's your girl Zoe D Speaks, calling you to a lifestyle of purity in not just sex, but how you talk, how you live, your faith walk and your love walk. And again, you can follow me on all social media platforms at Zoe D Speaks. You can check out all of my books, all of the podcast will be loaded at Zoe D Speaks. ZoeDSpeaks.com is my blog page. You can check that out. I also have a YouTube channel, Zoe D Speaks, there. And follow me on Twitter. I talk a little bit. And just connect with me. Feel free to leave a message. Feel free to send me any questions. I'll leave some links below with the podcast. But until next time, you're listening to Most High by Zoe D Speaks and Alana Michelle. I love you guys. Have a blessed day.
I love you, I love you, I love you, Most High. I love you, Most High. I love you, Most High. I love you.
Hey, here's what I do for the Most High. He gave me talents, I'ma use them for the Most High. Obey my calling, set a youth for the Most High. Worship in spirit and in truth to the Most High. Bow my face, bend my knees to the Most High. Pray, Father, Yah, set me free to the Most High.